My name is Olivia, and for most of my life, my dad made me feel like I would never be successful. He always compared me to my younger brother, Daniel. Daniel was confident, popular, and everyone in the family believed he would become successful someday. I was quieter, I preferred working alone, and I rarely talked about my plans. My dad took that as a sign that I was weak. One Sunday, our entire family gathered for dinner. Everyone was talking about their jobs and future plans. My uncle asked me, "Olivia, how is your work going?" Before I could answer, Dad laughed. "Her work? She doesn't have anything serious going on." Everyone became quiet. I looked at him. "Actually, Dad, things are going pretty well." He shook his head. "Stop pretending. You're almost 30. When are you going to do something useful with your life?" My face became hot, but I stayed calm. Then he looked at everyone and said, "Honestly, Olivia is useless. She will never build anything successful." A few people looked uncomfortable. Nobody defended me. I simply put down my fork and said, "Okay, Dad." He smiled as if he had won the argument, but there was something he didn't know. For the past 2 years, I had been building a technology company from my small apartment. I had started with a simple idea and spent countless nights working while everyone else was sleeping. I had failed several times. I had lost money. I had almost given up more than once. But eventually, the company started growing. A few months earlier, investors had contacted me. They believed the company could become extremely valuable. I never told my family because I knew exactly what would happen. They would either laugh at me or suddenly pretend they believed in me all along. 3 days after that dinner, I received an unexpected phone call. It was one of the investors. "Olivia, we want to make you an offer," I asked. "For how much?" He paused before answering. $10 million! I couldn't speak for a few seconds. The company I had built from nothing was about to change my life. I reviewed the documents with my lawyer, negotiated the final terms, and signed the agreement. My company had officially been sold for $10 million. I didn't celebrate publicly. Instead, I went home and thought about everything my dad had said. A week later, my parents invited me to dinner again. When I arrived, Dad looked at me and said, "So, what are you doing these days?" I smiled. "Actually, I wanted to show you something." I placed a folder on the table. Dad opened it. His expression immediately changed. "What is this?" I said. "The sale agreement for my company." He looked at the number again. $10 million? I nodded. Mom picked up the papers and started reading. Daniel leaned over to see them. Dad stared at me in disbelief. "You owned a company worth $10 million? I replied. "I did." He asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked directly at him. "Because every time I tried to tell you about my dreams, you told me they were worthless. Nobody said anything." Dad finally lowered his head. "Olivia, I'm sorry. For years I had imagined hearing those words. I thought they would make me feel powerful. But when they finally came, I realized I didn't need them anymore. I had already proven everything I needed to prove to myself," Dad continued. "I was wrong about you." I smiled and said, "Yes, you were." He asked if I could forgive him. I told him, "I can forgive you, but I won't forget how you made me feel." I didn't use the money to show off. I invested most of it and started planning my next project. For the first time in my life, I stopped worrying about whether my family thought I was successful. I understood something important. Sometimes the people who call you useless are simply unable to see what you're building because you're building it quietly. You don't have to announce every dream. You don't have to convince everyone you're capable. And you don't have to argue with people who refuse to believe in you. Keep working, keep learning, keep moving forward. Because one day, the results will speak louder than anything you could ever say. My dad called me useless in front of everyone. But he never knew that the person he was insulting was already building something worth $10 million.